Hello, BookTube. I mentioned yesterday that my 2019 is starting off poorly, and I don't mean to belabor that point, but in response to it, I have been looking for things to pick up my spirits. And of course, Frida, my little miniature schnauzer, is a big one of those things. But also, it's been my custom for a long time, a very long time, many decades. That when I feel like a pick-me-up, I go to the Brattle bookshop here in Boston. Those of you who maybe are new to the channel or don't know about it, it's a used bookstore in the heart of downtown Boston, and it's just stuffed with a great book selection. The first two floors are just ordinary paperback and hardcover used books on every subject under the sun, with the shelves double stacked and stacked on top. It's orderly. There aren't piles of books on the floor, but it's as full as a used bookstore as you'd ever want. And the third floor is older books, collectible books, that sort of thing, that are more expensive. The books on the first two floors are reasonably priced, extremely reasonably priced. The third floor is a little more expensive for things that have a little more of a story to them or whatever. And all that would be great on its own. I mean, everywhere that I have lived, that would have been a true find of a used bookstore. But the Brattle also has the lot next door, where there would ordinarily be another building, is empty and is full. They fill it with sale carts and sale shelves, books for $1, $3, and $5. That stock is rotated all the time, and you never know what you're going to find out there. The one thing you know you're not going to find out there, which is something that has yet to dawn on those odious book collectors, those speculators who have the app on their phone and go wherever there are used books hoping that they can make a 5-cent killing on eBay. The one thing they have never understood is that the one thing you will never find in the Brattle sale lot is a valuable book that has somehow slipped through the net and gone out for $1. And you might be able to find a book out there for $1 that you could sell for $1.05, but you won't find a Gutenberg out there, and that's because the staff knows what they're doing, and have been trained by some of the best book appraisers in the country. But you will find treasure out there, even so. Not the kind of treasure that book appraisers look for. But I have often said, and it's absolutely true, that with a single $20 bill, you can get 20 great books in one visit. Just you hand over $20 and you come out with a Brattle tote bag full of books. It's easy in the sale lot of the Brattle to create an entire library for yourself. Classics, the Renaissance, the birth of modern literature, history, nature, photography, you name it. It's possible to pursue interests out there and amass a library on those interests. I've seen people do it. I've done it myself many times over. And one of the things that I like about it, I guess, when I'm feeling down, is that if I go by myself and I don't meet anybody there that I know, then I can just sort of walk around the sale lot and commune with the books. As hippy-dippy as that sounds, I can just spend time with them in their silent company. These books, most of which I have a long relationship with, and I did that today, and it was a little blast from the past in terms of all of the countless times that I have gone to the Brattle sale lot. In that one of the things, I don't recommend it all the time, and I don't recommend it for everybody, and I don't do it all the time anymore. But one of the things that I recommend to get the full Brattle experience is to do the sale lot in inclement weather. Today it's freezing cold in Boston, freezing cold. In fact, in the Fahrenheit scale, well below freezing. And I knew ahead of time that would be painful to wander around the sale lot outside in such temperatures. But it brought back memories, and they're all good memories. So I did. I froze my giblets off and went out there and looked around. And I also shopped around inside, but I always forget that the Brattle Bookshop on Saturday, the one weekend day when they're open, is a completely different animal than it is when I go during the week. On Saturday, the shop is mobbed with people. Mobbed. Like, for instance, today, at one point, I was looking for something. I forget what it was. It was for one of you, and it was in the fiction aisle. Who was it? Well, I don't remember what it was. It was a book that I'd recommended on this channel or in an email or something. And one of you had said, oh, if you ever do see that at the Brattle, get it for me. And that's why I go. I go for myself, but I also go for you. And I thought, okay, well, that'll be in the fiction aisle. I'll just turn the corner and I stopped at the top of the fiction aisle because there were literally 10 people in an aisle the size of your bathroom. 10 people. They were shoulder to shoulder the entire length of the fiction aisle. Ridiculous. So I spent a lot of time out in the lot because there were fewer people out there because it was so cold. And it brought back memories of all the times that I've been there with so many different people. Deb and I used to go when we worked at the Barnes & Noble right up the street from the Brattle. We went at lunch every day, including when it was sleeting and snowing. And when it was freezing cold and blowing hard, we would go and just weather it because it was so much fun to find such an infinite variety of books, all in relatively good condition, that are so cheap that even on a bookseller salary you could afford them. And it helped. It worked. It always does. I've gone and done this Brattle therapy is what I call it. I've done this when I've lost dogs. I've done this when I've lost friends, and it does help in a way, I guess. I guess I am something of a bookworm. So I went, and it helped out quite a bit. It put me on a little bit better footing. And I got 5 books, and I wanted to show them to you. Because you don't seem to mind. In fact, quite a few of you have said that you prefer my secondhand book hauls to my new books, the new books that we get in the mail. Because with the new books, several of you have said that with the new books, I don't know what I'm getting. And I have no idea what I'm going to like, unless it's a squeal of glee for something that I already know I like, but that's rare. Whereas the things that I do on used book hauls, you've pointed out that you like the fact that I am operating on already possessed information. That's that's largely true. I do experiment, though, sometimes. The Brattle makes it possible to experiment, so I do that. But anyway, I got 2 murder mysteries. And 3 larger books, 3 larger format books. And the 2 murder mysteries are both set in the 1930s, but one comes by it naturally, but having been written in the 1930s, and the other is a modern book that was set in the 1930s. And the one that was written in the 1930s is this. It's The Mystery of the Cape Cod Tavern by Phoebe Atwood Taylor. This is an Asa Mayo murder mystery set in the 1930s Cape Cod. Phoebe Atwood Taylor did a whole bunch of these. She did one, and it got a much better reception than she or her publisher were expecting. And she did another one, and people liked it even more. And so she just kept doing them. She did a whole shelf of these things, and I don't have them, any of them, because some of you might remember if you're a certain vintage, you'll remember these as white spine mass market paperbacks in your new bookstore. They had a print run in the 90s. And the reason that I didn't get any of them is because, for reasons that pass my understanding, the mass market paperback run was poor quality. The covers popped right off the block of the pages. The glue was poor, the binding, all of that was just it was impossible to read one of them without it falling apart, unless you took inordinate care specifically to make it not fall apart. And I found that whenever I'm thinking that much about whether or not a book is going to explode in my hands, I'm not thinking about the book. And that's not good. I don't want anything taking me out of a reading experience. So I don't have any of those paperbacks. And now I'm hoping, if I saw this is just the original hardcover with the dust jacket, and I'm hoping that if I saw this at the Brattle, that maybe the Brattle Synchronicity, maybe the person who sold this sold them all. Had them all in hardcover. You see them in the attics of Cape Cod houses or in Cape Cod used bookstores. You'll see the whole run. They were eventually printing in large numbers because the Asa Mayo murder mysteries became very popular. And one of the things that I love about it now is a thing that Phoebe Atwood Taylor would not have intended as one of its selling points, which is that it's a keepsake of a Cape Cod that's largely gone. The main character and his associates know all kinds of Cape Cod lore, so the book is full of stuff like that. But the book itself solving murder mysteries in the present day Cape Cod is now a historical folklore of its own. And I think that's just fascinating. I haven't read The Mystery of the Cape Cod Tavern probably in 50 years. So, I think it's safe to say I might have forgotten a detail or two of the plot. So this is going to be a thrill. And I will also use this as a reminder to keep an eye out at the Brattle for other volumes in this series, because I would love to have at least the first 10, something like that. I wouldn't mind having them all if they're all there, because they're rereadable. They're quite funny. And then the other one is the one that's set in the 1930s. I think we saw this on this channel or something later in the series. This is The Silent Death by Volker Kutscher, set in 1930s Germany, that I guess was made into a TV show, Babylon Berlin, TV show that I have not seen. But this is, it's the 1930s in Germany. It's the Nazis running around everywhere. It's the film industry, and it's a main character. I think I have read one of these books. I don't think it was this one. But I'm gonna, when these things are so cheap, the Brattle books are so cheap that I just snarf them up and then I research them. With many books, used bookstores that I have been to in the past, you see something like this or something else, some Dickens edition or whatever, and you wonder whether or not you have it already, or whether or not you have something near it, or whether or not you actually want it. And you put it back on the shelf and you make a mental note and you go back home and you check your books, and the next time you're in, you know whether or not you want it. And you can't do that at the Brattle because things disappear. This is such a high turnover that you can't do that. So I just snarf things up and then I figure them out. And I'm well disposed towards it, and I can't remember, but I'm thinking that probably means I have read another book in this series and really liked it. I don't think I've read this one. But one way or another, I love the paperback. I love the design of it. I love the time period, so I'll gladly enjoy it anyway. And those were the two murder mysteries. Then I got 3 larger format books. The first one is something that I get all the time. I get it whenever I see it. It's wonderful. But I get rid of it as many times as I see it as well. And that's this. It's an old favorite. It's Cosmos by Carl Sagan. This is the book that accompanied his Generation imprinting TV show. And I have had many, many copies of this book, and I always get rid of it. People want it. They want, I want a book that will blow me away. I want a book that will teach me something without making me feel stupid. I want a book that will fill me with wonder. This fits the bill on all of those counts, so I just grab it whenever I see it, and I don't, as a result, I don't have a copy right now myself, so I will reinforce this a little. I confess part of the reason here was personal, of course, since I am still feeling a little bit down, and sometimes misery loves company, and I love this book, but I also miss its author, so it felt kind of natural to do. And then the next larger format book is a type of book that I just love. It's a plank bridge by a pool. This is the author grows up, in industrial England, but he always dreams about owning a plot of land, buying a plot of land, and then making it into a natural wonderland, not farming it so much, not rigorously, but making it a place of nooks and crannies and of wandering brooks and little islands, and encouraging wildlife of all kinds to come and stay there. If I were ever to indulge in property owning, I think it's madness. I don't understand it at all. I am very much a small scale liver when it comes to that sort of thing. I don't dream of a house or a big house or anything like that. A small room like this one is pretty much all I need if it has a functioning kitchen anywhere nearby. And the only time I'm ever tempted otherwise is to think about buying a plot of land somewhere far away from the city, but close enough so the city's not impossible. And the plot of land would come. I often think about this, think about writing about it. The plot of land would come with, a house, and I think find the smallest room in that house, a tiny little room underneath the stairs or something like that, or an outbuilding, a weatherized outbuilding, and make that where you live. and make the building a library. And just fill it with books. That'd be the only example where I could come up with where I would indulge in such a thing as this. I wouldn't do it in America. Of course, I would do it in the Netherlands. But this is in England. And this has wonderful prose and lots of illustrations by the author. And I love this book. And this is another example of how when I get a copy, I end up giving it away. That's why I don't have a copy now, because somebody will say to me, I'm looking for a nature book that will make me feel good. A nature book about something like the Still Meadow books. Though some of you may be familiar with the Still Meadow series of books. They're all long since out of print, but they were along the same lines, where the author finds a plot and makes it a little paradise. Stress on little. And I've had readers who say, I've read books like that and I really liked it. If you find something like that at the Brattle, please send it to me. So I don't have a copy of this now. I'll see how long I hold on to this one. It's very heartwarming. It will. I definitely bought for comfort this time around. So I'll gladly reread it on that grounds. And the next book is also comfort. It doesn't get much more comforting when it comes to me. It's Charles Passage. It's an edition, believe it or not, of the complete works of Horace, the Roman poet Horace. I know that I say believe it or not because I've often said that I don't think Horace is really translatable. And that has sort of soured me on various translations of his works, and that's what this is. This is a collection of... Charles Passage translates everything by Horace. And you would think that means that it would be just another Horace edition that I wouldn't want. But I actually had this edition for a long time in a trade paperback until it fell apart on me. I consulted it so much that it fell apart. Because it's different from a lot of any other Horace translation that I can think of into English. The author translates everything that Horace did. He translates all of it without rhyme, which has always tempted people when it comes to Horace. And he translates each one of the poems in its own native meter, which is very ambitious. And Charles Passage did a whole lot of work in other languages. He is a linguist. He's a poet, was a poet in his own right, a scholar of multiple different authors. And that helps a lot. That helps a lot. A classicist who has only studied Horace for his whole life will not have anything like the literary ambit that Horace himself had. And you need that in order to even begin to translate his work. So the translations in this book are actually good. But I won't be using it for that. This scholarly apparatus here, the author in his introduction says that what he hopes for is to give you a sense of Horace and for it to be inviting for the newcomer, but also have enough critical apparatus for a reasonably detailed look at Horace's life and art. And that is understatement. That is humility. It's actually blisteringly good. One of the Horace books to have and keep, even if you don't really read Horace's verse in translation anymore. And I don't read Horace in English anymore. But that doesn't mean you don't have books about him. And this is one of them. And the reason I'm holding off showing it to you is because you're going to be a little shocked by the shape that it's in. This is unlike the Brattle. Most used bookstores would sell stuff like this. The Brattle usually doesn't. They have standards, and they also have their own dumpster. so they don't usually do this. I don't know what this was doing on the shelf, but this is what it looks like. It's in pretty rough shape. It's only the dust jacket. The book is perfectly fine. So believe it or not, I am actually going to save this thing, the dust jacket. I'm going to remake this and make it just fine. It's in pretty rough shape, but I've saved worse books, so I was happy to find it, especially for so cheap. So there you go. That is a feel-good Brattle trip, a little Brattle therapy. So we have an edition of Horace that I actually do recommend. I'm sure that it's out of print and will stay out of print, but I was glad to find it. Then a plank bridge by a pool. It's, of course, the book is about a lot more than just that. It's about farming and reclaiming the land. And then Cosmos by Carl Sagan. Just a big, you really want the big hardcover of this. It was made into a smaller paperback, but it's so lavishly illustrated that you really want the big hardcover. You can get it, and you can see it needs a little rehabilitation as well. And then The Silent Death, a murder mystery set in 1930s Berlin. And The Mystery of the Cape Cod Tavern by Phoebe Atwood Taylor, set in 1930s Cape Cod. So that is a little Brattle haul for you. I don't know what other videos I'll make today, but I'll try. And if I don't, then we'll see each other tomorrow. Thank you, BookTube.